What's up guys, today we're going to be looking at 5 of the most underrated champions in patch 4.1 that you could easily main and get to diamond with. Now these are champions that aren't too popular, but they have certain reasons why they are good picks right now, and if people realised, I think they'd be playing them more. Now as with most of my videos, there will be timestamps to each champ in the description below, so if you want to skip one then just scroll down and go ahead. So first up we have Ahri. Now Ahri has a lot of burst, she has a ton of mobility, is really difficult to gank and has a lot of kill potential. She's a very strong and safe laner, which means that it's pretty easy to get ahead on her, and when you are ahead you can start to roam and snowball your advantage. Now one of Ahri's biggest strengths is that she can 100 to 0 someone pretty easily, meaning that if you do get caught by her you're basically screwed, and that's a very dangerous thing to play against mid game when a kill will often lead to a tower or a dragon. Now she's kind of fallen out of favour mainly because of other picks, not that she's weak. Now for example, LeBlanc does pretty much the same job that she does, but maybe just a little bit better, and she's more popular right now and kind of overshadows Ahri. Now Ahri also doesn't have much utility. If she can't kill someone, then the only thing she really brings to the table is a charm, and that is such a high cooldown that your team can practically be 4v5 in a team fight. So let's move on to why I think she's secretly strong, and the first thing is the matchups. So Ziggs and Gragas are really popular right now. They're very good laners and snowball pretty hard, so you have to try and shut them down in the lane phase. Now Ahri is pretty good at this because Ziggs and Gragas rely completely on skill shots for their damage, and Ahri can dodge them with her ultimate, meaning that in theory she shouldn't take any damage from them, and she still does enough to secure kills back onto them. Now the second thing is specific to Gragas. Now Gragas' W reduces damage taken and is a big part of why he can farm and not take that much damage from your harass. Ahri's Q, which you should max in this matchup, does true damage on the way back, meaning that it completely ignores the damage reduction from his W. It's actually really hard for Gragas to lane against Ahri, and after she's hit a few Qs and she's in complete control and will zone Gragas from farm or kill him. So to sum that all up, she has sustain, an escape, kill potential in lane, making her very strong early. She can 100 to 0 people, so will just ward mid game, catch you rotating and then snowball from that. She's a good pick against other popular picks right now, and finally you never know when she's going to kill you. It sounds odd, but she can probably catch you from a whole screen away, and that'll make you play pretty scared all game. She is however quite weak to crowd control, and if she gets locked down in a team fight she's going to die. She can't get to the back line as easy as someone like LeBlanc, so she requires a little bit more thinking and positioning than other mid laners. Since the slight change a while ago, you now need to hit that charm before you go in because it amplifies your damage, so if you miss that you kind of have to wait for that cooldown, which isn't always a good idea. Alright then, so next up we have Morgana, however you want to say it. Now Morgana has always sat on the sidelines, never really fitting mid or support, but I'd argue that she's pretty good at both roles right now. She's a very good team fight, a surprising amount of damage, great lane control, and she's pretty impossible to kill early. Morgana is basically just a farming machine. She pushes the wave and then she goes to farm the jungle or she roams. There's nothing really your lane opponent can do to stop you, and so you just free farm for 20 minutes, get a bunch of items and then wreck team fights. Landing a bind into a pool a couple of times in a row will put them in kill range, and people always underestimate Morgana's damage, which kind of works in your favour. One of the reasons why she isn't used so much right now is because she isn't really seen as a hard carry. Mid laners right now have a lot of influence in the game, and Morgana is more of a utility mage rather than a damage threat. So why is she so strong then? Well, I've kind of mentioned it already. For the mid lane, she pushes very hard. She's extremely hard to lane against because you'll permanently be under your own turret. Now unless you have a blue buff, there is no way you can push as hard as her, which is why she's a good pick against people like Ziggs or Kayle, because they don't have the easiest time farming under turret. Now while she is a good mid laner, I'd argue that she is just as good if not better as a support. Her spell shield basically counters the trinity of supports right now, Thresh, Leona and Annie. Now all three of them rely on heavy crowd control to fight in lane. So just imagine Thresh with no hook or flay and Leona and Annie with no stuns. Suddenly those three don't really look so good, right? Well, this is practically what Morgana does because her spell shield takes away those things and basically allows your AD to farm and survive the lane phase. Now it's not just the lane phase either. Mid game Leona and Annie are famed for their stun initiations, and Morgana can spell shield the target so they can just run away. So then, she pushes really hard, her spell shield counters a lot of the meta champions right now, she has a good team fight and she doesn't really need items to be effective, but if she does get some items then she will do a ton of damage. Now her weaknesses are really that she has to dive in as a mage into the middle of the enemy team really to be effective. This is kind of a problem if you don't get some early survivability, and she doesn't really peel as hard as other supports either. This is one of the biggest reasons why she isn't played as a support right now, because she doesn't really fit into the dive or protection categories of support. She's kind of just okay at both. So next up we have Diana, and this is going to be for the jungle or mid lane. Now Diana has really fallen out of favour, but she is still a freaking beast and will devastate carries with only a couple of items. Now she's kind of like Gragas in a way, because she struggles a bit early as she's easy to harass, but once she gets a few levels she can instantly clear the wave and then go roam or go farm the jungle. She also plays a team fight very similar as well. Diana has a ton of damage, something that most people have forgotten about, and as soon as she gets 2 items she will be able to one-shot the enemy AD in a single rotation, which is pretty ridiculous. It also means that you have to be very careful in lane, because if she gets ahead of you then she'll likely just farm you instead of minions. One of the biggest downsides to Diana is similar to what I said about Morgana. You have to dive into the enemy team to do damage, and if you don't have the damage to one-shot someone or a Zhonya's to survive, then you'll likely just get blown up, and that kind of sucks. If you fall behind, you're going to find it really hard to have any sort of impact in the game, so this is probably one of the riskier picks in this video. Okay then, so why do I think she's so strong? Well, she's a pretty strong laner after level 6. She has great farm and kill potential, meaning that you will get a lot of gold and in theory be able to reach that threshold you need to kill people pretty quickly. She also does well against champions like Gragas and Orianna, who are popular right now because they don't really have a way to deal with Diana. Both are skill matchups, but Diana reaches a point where she can kill them before they can kill her, and that has a potential to snowball into a lead. Now jungle wise, she has very good clear, good ganks after level 6, and because the junglers now get more money, she can get the items she needs. Her ganks before 6 do really suck though, which means that your team needs to survive until then, and that's when you start having a major impact. The new jungle item gives Diana the sustain and damage she needs to clear efficiently, and she'll become a very strong mid-game powerhouse as long as you don't get behind. So to sum it up then, she does insane damage, which means that she can kill people pretty easily and snowball very hard. She farms well, she can one-shot carries, and even jungle well if someone picks a counter against you mid lane. Now she does have a few weaknesses of course. For starters, she is not that safe a laner and is very vulnerable to ganks. Her style is very all in, and once you do actually all in, you have no way of getting out again, so you have to be sure you know where their jungler is and that the enemy laner can't just turn around and kill you after your rotation. I feel like the biggest reason she isn't played more is that if you do get behind, you're going to struggle because you do have to jump into the enemy team. Even if you're strong, if your team is weak, then it's still going to be a problem jumping into the middle of the enemy team. So for AD we have Tristana. Now you might not class Tristana as underrated, but she is definitely underplayed and rarely seen. She has the highest base range at level 18, an escape, an attack speed steroid, a knockback, and is even pretty strong in lane. If she starts to snowball, you are going to be in for a really difficult game because her main downfall is the lack of damage mid game. Now if she gets ahead, it kind of removes this weak part, and so you're going to struggle to shut her down. A lot of people think that Trist is really weak in lane, and it's just not really the case. Sure, she isn't as strong as someone like Draven, but she can poke with her E, and if the enemy doesn't go aggressive onto you, then you'll basically get a free lane from that poke. This gives you a lot of freedom because you can either have a passive support, poke and just farm, or you can have an aggressive support and then dive in with your W for the kill. A cool little tip with Leona, who I think is one of the best aggressive supports, is to either target just as Leona engages. Now your E ticks of damage will actually proc Leona's passive, making it much more likely that you proc more of the passive stacks than you would from just auto attacking. The main reason she isn't picked right now is because mid game the popular picks will output way more damage than you. Now Draven, Jinx and Lucian all have abilities that scale with AD, and so will be able to do more damage than you will, which can set your team behind. So why do I think she's really strong now? Well, firstly, games are dragging on for so much longer in Season 4. Now nearly all of my solo queue games are over 30 minutes, and so late game champions are becoming much more popular. Even if you have a semi-rough lane phase, it's unlikely that the enemy team can close out the game before you get some items, and at that point you will really start to shine. The other reason is because of the attention that bot lane gets now that the meta has shifted. So bot lane is easier to gank with a lack of wards, and the popular jungle champs are all very aggressive. It's likely that at some point you will get a gank on bot, and so if you do snowball on Tristana from that, then you can carry the game completely by yourself. So in my eyes, you either get ahead early and carry, or you go even or behind and have to wait a bit, but eventually you'll still carry. So to sum that all up, her lane phase isn't that bad, she just takes a bit of getting used to. She can snowball pretty hard if you get ahead and will catch up if she gets behind. Her attack speed steroid is one of the best in the game because her base attack speed is actually really high. She has a jump to get away and a knockback to create even more distance, making her very safe. Now on the other side, she doesn't really have much kill potential unless your support does a lot of damage like Ahri. If you're against an aggressive AD, then you will get zoned from the wave, and if you get zoned too hard, then it may take too long to get back into the game. If Tristana wants a kill early to mid game, then she is most likely going to have to jump in for the extra damage, so you need to know exactly how much damage you can do, which is kind of difficult. Now finally we have Sona. I honestly think that Sona is a hidden OP right now. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with that statement, but when played correctly, she can practically win the bot lane by herself and then win mid game team fights with her ultimate. Now she has great sustain or great poke, which means that she can fit into pretty much any lane or team comp, but fights is where she really shines. Now her ultimate is incredible, and if you stun both enemies in the bot lane, then it's impossible to lose that fight. Take that into an actual team fight, and there are so many ways that you can have a huge impact, like stunning the enemy carries, preventing the initiation from them, or even initiating yourself. Now there isn't really too much I can say about why Sona is good, because she has a pretty simple kit, but it's extremely effective. So why is it now that she is a hidden OP again? Well, in short, it's the support items. Her biggest weakness is that she is so easy to kill. Yes, she does have great sustain and great poke, but before, the enemy could just hard engage and you'd be dead before you could do anything. Well, with Adoran's shield, Sightstone and gold per 10, it kind of covers up this weakness because she can get tanky quite fast. Now supports get so much more gold early that she can just build enough defense to stop her dying, and suddenly she is a tanky support who has an amazing heal, amazing poke and a big ticket ultimate. There are also two styles you can play Sona. If you decide to max your Q, you can get the Spell Thief's Edge, which will give you a ton of damage and make you more like Ahri, or you can max your W, build tanky and act more like a Thresh or Leona. This flexibility is why I think she's so strong right now. So her strengths, she has a great heal, great poke, and can have a huge impact in teamfights with her ultimate. Now she is super noob friendly as she's kind of easy to play herself, but she can nurse a bad AD player through the lane phase. Now she does have some weaknesses though, so she's still easy to kill before you back and buy items, meaning that you have to play safe before your first recall. Even with tanky items, you can't be the one diving in and going ham, you have to be patient and wait for the right time. You aren't really a playmaking support in lane, you're more of just a helping hand, and so it's unlikely that you'll be able to feed your AD kills and snowball them. So that wraps up my 5 most underrated champions for patch 4.1, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And let me know who you think is the most underrated on this list in the comments below, and also feel free to make any suggestions you think I should play and include in the next video. As always though, I will catch you in my next video.